Hey everyone, welcome back to Rooted in Redding. If you are joining us for the very first time, I'm Faith Barrett, your local guide to everything you need to know here in Redding, California. Now, a few weeks back, we actually did a big map tour of Redding. We mapped out the west side, the east side, different neighborhoods to pay attention to, and just kind of landmarks to know if you're new to the area. So I thought that it would be really good for us to kind of explore all the cities outside of Redding, California that kind of make up Shasta County and Tehama County. And so we're going to kind of go in a clockwise progression of outside areas that a lot of people still want to live in, but still be close to Redding. Now, for framework, I will kind of give you a direction and idea of, how long does it take to get to downtown Redding? But a lot of people choose to live outside of Redding, mainly for the fact of sometimes the area is a cheaper cost entry price. The average median price for like Shasta Lake is around $290. Whereas if you live in Redding, the average kind of median sales price is around $380. So cost of living sometimes can be a little bit more affordable when you step outside of the city of Redding, as well as just a different lifestyle. We live in a very, countryside area of Northern California, a lot of outdoor opportunities, a lot of nature. And so people want to kind of experience that, not just living in downtown Redding or in the suburbs and whatnot. So this really is going to give you an idea of other areas to consider, but that are still remotely very close to Redding. And fun fact, I actually don't live in Redding. I live in Shasta Lake, which is about 10 minutes from Redding. And so I can kind of give you an idea and a perspective of, what's life like for me, specifically in Shasta Lake. I also grew up my entire life in Palo Cedro, which is the countryside of, the area outside of Redding. And it's a very popular countryside. And so I can kind of give you also a framework with that. So today is all about giving you the grand tour outside of Redding. So let's get started. Now, something to note is anything outside of the city of Redding, you can actually qualify for a loan called USDA. And this is 100% financing. It is definitely considered based on household income, but for people moving to our area that maybe don't have a lot of money to put down, but are looking for some type of assistance in their purchase, USDA works in our area, but you just have to be outside of the city of Redding. So for all the areas that I'm talking about today, this could be a great program for you if you're looking to move to our area or, are here already and are trying to figure out, where home is for you. So starting out, we're going to go kind of in a clockwise position because I think that would be most helpful. So over here, this is basically obviously all, Redding essentially. Let me get my draw map. Hang on. Let's see. And we are going to draw. I was never a very good artist, but today we're going to attempt it. So kind of giving you a little bit, again, I'm giving kind of rough ideas. This is still the city of Redding as well. So kind of give you a rough idea, let's start with Shasta Lake. Now, this is an area that I have lived in for the last 7 years. I love Shasta Lake, primarily speaking because you are really, really close to Shasta Lake, obviously. But a lot of people don't realize how, connected you are from downtown Shasta Lake, which, a lot of people have, I think in some regards has kind of seen Shasta Lake as a little bit of the forgotten city. There's a lot of, businesses that, are closed, but there is definitely a huge revitalization going on in Shasta Lake. And I personally think that over the next 3 to 4 years, Shasta Lake is going to be a very popular spot to live. The price point is roughly about, $290 average median price point year to date. And it is really a great price point for a lot of people that are just trying to get into a home. A lot of homes are, about 3 bedrooms, 1 bath. Sometimes they're 3-2, depending on kind of where that price point lands. But we've helped a lot of families get into Shasta Lake, and it's been a really, great situation for a lot of people. So over here in Shasta Lake, this is kind of the downtown area of Shasta Lake is right here. These are kind of like the outskirts of Shasta Lake. So a very popular subdivision is Windsor Estates, as well as Deer Creek Manor. These are kind of newer construction. And so let me move my little mouse around. So these tend to be kind of like, I would say, more of like, this is Deer Creek is over here, and then you got Windsor over here. And these tend to be very popular neighborhoods for newer construction in Shasta Lake. Downtown Shasta Lake, you're gonna see more of the older style homes. A lot of first-time home buyers, choose to live here just based off a price point. But what's really cool is as you jet up, you're gonna be able to get to the Shasta Dam, Shasta Lake. Santa Mooney is a boat launch up there. We are literally 5 minutes from Santa Mooney. So if you love the lake, if you love fishing, boating, whatever, this is a great prime spot to live a really affordable lifestyle, but be near the water. As we kind of come up, let me move my little cursor. As we kind of come up, Shasta Lake is huge, so there's different ways to connect to Shasta Lake. It's not only obviously Santa Mooney, but a lot of people obviously know Shasta Lake for Shasta Dam. It's a huge tourist attraction. People walk the dam, people visit it, and then like I said, you have different various boat launches to access Shasta Lake. What I love about Shasta Lake personally, because I've lived there for 7 years, is how quick it is to get to downtown Redding. You can easily get onto the I-5 and be downtown in about 12 minutes. So there's not a whole lot of traffic. Another really cool fact that most people don't take into consideration is, that Shasta Lake has its own utilities company. So a lot of people come here and they're like, is this Redding, city utilities? Is this PG&E? The big trigger word is, is the whole house on PG&E, or what type of utilities company? And so with being on Shasta Lake, you are your own utilities company out there. And we have found significant benefit with the idea of, our utilities going through. A lot of it's cheaper and a little bit more affordable. So it becomes a little bit more of a perk of living out in Shasta Lake. Downtown in Shasta Lake, you're gonna have a grocery store called Century Market. There's Heritage Coffee, and there's just really a huge revitalization going on with Shasta Dam Boulevard. K2 Development's trying to come in and really try to, plant more developments in that area so that it becomes more of what I think it's just dying to be, which is just a really cool hub of where you're close to the lake, you have affordable housing, but it's just kind of its own little entity outside of Redding. Okay, so moving on, let's jump over to the east side. Now, we touched a little bit on this during our last map tour, just the idea of Bear Mountain, Jones Valley. Now, this is kind of, again, country living for sure. You have a bit more of mixed areas. Now, Jones Valley is kind of, it's also quick access to the lake as well. You can get to the lake from Jones Valley, so some people like to live on Jones Valley, but Bear Mountain, Deer Creek Road is kind of touching into a little bit of the Bella Vista area, the countryside. Now, I will say, keep in mind, when we talk about countryside, when we talk about country living, there is a lot to be considered now based on all the high fire that we have experienced in the state of California. So insurance cost is huge. So this is something I really navigate with people when they're like, I want to live in the country. I'm like, that's great. Are you prepared to, pay a little bit of a higher insurance premium because of just the cost of fire insurance these days? So just note that anything in our tour that's really on the countryside of things is going to most likely have a high insurance premium cost to it. So coming over on this east side, we have Dry Creek, we have Bear Mountain Road, Jones Valley. These are kind of, just areas, again, more rural, a little bit more mixed. Sometimes you'll find a mobile home on land, sometimes you'll find a manufactured home, sometimes you'll find like a really nice big house. We just recently closed a house over on Bear Mountain Road. It had a pool, solar, it sat on 7 acres, and it sold for about $700,000. So sometimes that dollar gets a little bit more stretched in these rural areas that don't have as of a premium price point as areas like Cottonwood or Palo Cedro. So coming down, there is a little area called Bella Vista. And coming out to Bella Vista, you can follow 299, and this goes all the way to Bernie. We do service Bernie a little bit, but we really won't get into that as much. But coming into Bella Vista, this is kind of the heart and hub of what most people kind of consider as Palo Cedro. Now, I grew up in Palo Cedro. I love Palo Cedro. It is the premium country prime spot that a lot of people fight to be in. I will say overall, it is a little bit harder to get into Palo Cedro. Year to date, median sales price has been roughly about $605,000. So it is much higher cost of living out here in Palo Cedro. But the cool part about Palo Cedro, my folks still live out there, is there is a little bit of a downtown, air quotes, downtown part of Palo Cedro. You have Holiday Market, you have little coffee shops, you have gas stations. Like, you can do life in Palo Cedro. And from Palo Cedro, it's about, 15 minutes or so to downtown Redding. So a lot of people want to live in Palo Cedro mainly for the safety, the agriculture part of it, the countryside. I mean, it's just a beautiful place to live. But sometimes what most people know in our area is that Palo Cedro comes with a higher price point. As you can see, that median sales price being about $605. And so what happens is a lot of times you're just paying the price to be in Palo Cedro, but sometimes the houses need a lot of updating or cosmetic work, so that you can, make it your own. So that is something to be known about Palo Cedro. Another cool fact about Palo Cedro is there's actually 4 schools out there. So a lot of people commute to Palo Cedro for the school systems. We have Foothill High School, we have Redding Christian, which is a private school. We have North Cow Creek, which is an elementary school, as well as Junction. A lot of them are pretty close nearby. So I'm gonna move this to a hybrid map so you can kind of get a little bit more of the lay of the land. So over here is Foothill. Let me draw this. So this is Foothill. Over here is Redding Christian High School. And then this is kind of like your central shopping center for downtown Palo Cedro, I would say. That is where you're gonna find Holiday Market, the coffee shops, different little boutique things. And then coming down just a little bit further, you're going to have Junction Middle School right here. And then cutting across, you are going to have North Cow Creek School over here. So really a lot of educational options out here in Palo Cedro. And let me move this back to road. There we go. So as you can see, a lot of the educational system is pretty close by. So a lot of people love to be out in Palo Cedro. They meet their needs for that country, lifestyle, being close to, day-to-day amenities, but also great school systems. I personally have lived in Palo Cedro my entire life before getting married, and then I moved to Shasta Lake. I can attest that Palo Cedro just has a really special place for a lot of people, and we just really, really love it. Cow Creek runs through Palo Cedro, and that just really kind of creates a really cool, place to go rafting down the river or fishing. And so a lot of people just love having their families out in Palo Cedro. So as we come from Palo Cedro, so here we are, you're gonna have a little bit of an outskirt area that is called Millville. We won't really touch too much into it. I say it's kind of like the sister neighborhood to Palo Cedro. Again, it's very country, big properties, 20, 30, 40 acres. Sometimes you'll find out there to, homes just sitting on just, a standard 5 acres. So there's a lot of property out here. Again, note that you're going to definitely have a little bit more of that higher premium in the insurance cost. Now, as we come up, some people don't like the heat that Redding has, and that's rightfully to be said. It is hot, it's dry heat. You can, have temperatures in the summertime up to like 109, 110, and some people just cannot stand the heat. And so where those people go is Shingletown. So this is kind of like the woods of our area. So up here in Shingletown, it's pretty big. Now I will say Shingletown is predominantly a slower market. So if you are a buyer, you can find typically a decent amount of inventory up there. Median sales price year to date is around $300,000. During the winter times, you're going to have the snow. So certain parts of, Shingletown, it's going to be, are you below the snow level or are you really up into the woods? Now, if you live in Shingletown, a lot of people love to sometimes Airbnb their properties based on the fact that, Lassen Park is literally right around the corner. Some people just love the woods and they want the trees and they want that cabin woodsy feel. So it's really, I would say, very specific to people. Not everybody likes it, but I will say, if you are a buyer looking to kind of be outskirts, kind of have your own peace and quiet, Shingletown could be an area to consider. There are different kind of little, subdivisions in Shingletown, but a lot of them are pretty much spread out where you're going to find, just about anything in a price point that could meet your needs. I will say that insurance cost is very costly up in Shingletown. Sometimes you can get a little bit lucky with it being close to the fire station, but I will just say it across the board is typically a California Fair Plan area as of right now because of the state of our insurance crisis. However, it is a place that a lot of people still consider. So if you love the woods, if you love the cabin, if you're looking for an investment property, maybe an Airbnb, a place to kind of get away, Shingletown is a place that you're definitely going to see a lot of opportunities in where your dollar kind of gets stretched, essentially. So that's Shingletown. So from Shingletown to Redding, you kind of travel down the 44, you're roughly about 35 to maybe 40 minutes, depending how far you up. If you get all the way up to Viola, all the way up there to Lassen, you're gonna be almost like 50 minutes. So this is a pretty, condensed, congested area. Thankfully, it hasn't experienced too much of a huge fire area. We did obviously have, the big fire a couple months ago that almost reached about right up to Manton, but thankfully Shingletown hasn't had any severe fires internally yet that has really affected that area. So as we come down, we obviously talked about Shingletown, we talked about Palo Cedro. We're gonna kind of move down to Anderson. Now, Anderson is again on the outskirts area of Redding. I'm just gonna close my little maparoo. Again, this is kind of a little rough of what the outskirts of city of Redding are. As you come down, you're gonna obviously have Palo Cedro, Anderson, and Cottonwood. Now, Cottonwood is mainly known for its big ranches, its agricultural, and Anderson kind of has a little bit of a mix. One of those more popular areas is off of Dersh and like Balls Ferry Road. You're gonna see some of those ranches, but for maybe a first-time home buyer, somebody who's trying to just get into a home, you're gonna kind of see a lot of opportunity in down or central Anderson. This is where our fairgrounds are. So every year our county has a fair. This is where the fairgrounds are at. There's larger events that happen at those fairgrounds, but the average, kind of the median sales price year to date is around $321 in Anderson. So a lot of times people might find, like recently we just sold a first-time home buyer house for $280, and it was a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, literally in the heart of Anderson. As you kind of get a little bit on the outskirts of like right downtown Anderson, you're gonna have different pockets of neighborhoods that are a little bit, in that median sales price. But as you stretch out past kind of the central part of Anderson, you're gonna have Dersh, Balls Ferry, and these are really, the agricultural, the country properties that some people, if they can't find it in Palo Cedro because that price point is too high, they'll move to Anderson. And then if they can't find it in Anderson, they'll move to Cottonwood. I will say a lot of times people position themselves based on proximity to Redding. And that really just comes down to preference. Some people don't mind being 45 minutes outside of Redding. Some people don't mind being, only 20 minutes. It's really gonna come down to what's the lifestyle you guys want and how can that area best serve you. As we come down, you're gonna have basically Palo Cedro connects, you're gonna have Anderson, kind of like the outskirts. There is Anderson River Park, which is a huge park here, great for music, little festivals that they put on during the summer, food truck park. There's a splash zone, there's soccer parks. I mean, there's definitely like a hub in Anderson that really can serve families, as well as if you're looking, like I said, for that countryside. Before we get over to Cottonwood, there's a little arm extending Anderson called Happy Valley. Now, a lot of people kind of lump this together like Happy Valley, Anderson kind of thing, but Happy Valley really is its own thing. Now, Happy Valley, in my opinion, is a little bit out there. You definitely have different price points to meet your needs, and sometimes you'll find what you're looking for out there at a cheaper price than you would find anywhere in Anderson, Palo Cedro, Cottonwood, etc. However, I will definitely say that fires definitely have occurred a little bit more predominantly out there in like the Igo area, so it's not exactly hit Happy Valley, but like this kind of more terrain area, we definitely have seen a little bit more of fire activity, especially in the Cloverdale area. So it definitely has its pros and cons to possibly what you're hoping to get in a lifestyle. As we come down, talked about Anderson, we're now in Cottonwood. Now, as I kind of discussed before, Cottonwood is a very predominant agricultural ranch lifestyle. I mean, we have probably like Prather Ranch, Rockin' H, like local ranches here are predominantly positioned in Cottonwood just for the agricultural of water. There's a lot of ACID, which is just irrigated pastures that occur a little bit in Anderson as well as Cottonwood. And so there's just a lot of benefits to ranchers living in Cottonwood. Now there's two parts of Cottonwood that I really kind of always break down for people if they're considering an idea or move to our area is Cottonwood itself, which is a really cute town. and then Lake California. Now, Lake California is going to land in the Cottonwood kind of zip code overall area. However, it does provide two different lifestyles. Cottonwood, you're gonna find just that really predominant country living. Now, the median sales price for that area year to date is roughly around $360. Now, obviously there's gonna be some major variables like when big ranches sell or big properties come up, but roughly median sales price year to date is about $360. Now, over in Lake California, this is an HOA community. Now, this is an area that has just kind of been an area that a lot of people have watched develop. There is a small airport, there's horse trails, there's a club, there is a lake that you get access to. So this is definitely a lifestyle that most people either are all on board with or don't really want to get on board based on the fact of it being HOA. Now, the HOA isn't really that bad in terms of price wise. I definitely would say like you're roughly gonna look somewhere in like the low, I think it's like 125, 150. I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but it's not anything excessive. However, I have mostly found that people who live in our area don't really love HOAs, but people coming from big cities are more accustomed to HOAs, so they're not totally turned off by it. Lake California is kind of its own thing. I will say, because Lake California has sometimes a hit and miss for consumers considering buying in there. Sometimes you can get a really great price, like new construction out there. You could get a brand new house out there for like $425, $450, sometimes even on the water, which is pretty unheard of if you were to even try to find that in Redding. So there's a lot of different hidden gems in Lake California, and I just say it's not for everybody. The other thing besides kind of the idea of it being, well, the fact of it being in an HOA is a lot of people don't like that it's one way in and one way out. So it's a gated community, it's very strict security, which is a plus, but it's one way in and one way out. Obviously there's fire exits and everything like that for the case of emergency, but a lot of people don't like that feeling. And it also is a little bit more out there. So from Lake California to literally downtown Redding, or even the Costco, which is at least got a little bit closer for y'all if you lived in Lake California, I mean, you're roughly looking at probably about 20-ish minutes. So some people just, they feel like it's too far, and other people prefer it. So to each their own is what I say. So that's Cottonwood, Lake California. Now, the interesting part about Cottonwood that you should know is that we in Redding, California are in Shasta County. So all these areas that I pretty much talked about roughly are in a Shasta County zone. As we get a little bit further down, you're gonna land right here. This is Bowman, and this is Gas Point. So these two areas basically split the line of where Shasta County and Tehama County starts. Now, some people have just a preference of wanting to live in the Shasta County area versus the Tehama County, but Cottonwood does kind of start splitting, and it does land in the Tehama County. As you get down, you're gonna kind of experience a little bit of Hooker Creek. Now, I kind of look at Hooker Creek a little bit like Happy Valley in my personal opinion. It's rural, it's out there. You are gonna have a lot of terrain properties. I will say though that the houses that you'll see out in Hooker Creek are gonna be a little bit bigger plots of lands. Sometimes you're gonna find mobile homes on lots that, you know, just works for more rural living. But Hooker Creek is kind of a really rural part that I kind of tell people, if you really want to live out in the middle of nowhere, kind of just have your own peace and quiet, but not have to pay a really premium price of like Cottonwood or like Palo Cedro or like Anderson, you're going to really kind of maybe hover to the Hooker Creek area. As you come down, you know, if you're kind of like, well, what's the lifestyle there? You're kind of split because you're basically the last exit on I-5 before you start really getting into Red Bluff. Now, Red Bluff is an area we do service. This is in the Tehama County. So Red Bluff to Redding is about 45 minutes. And this is kind of about where past Red Bluff, I don't really service just because I think it's just too much area to cover. And I also want to be, you know, a local expert for the areas that I feel confident in. So past Red Bluff, I don't really cover. That's when you're going to start getting into, you know, splitting off to Chico, you know, going a bit further down south. If you live in the Hooker Creek area, you know, you're going to be a little bit closer to Red Bluff, where you're going to have like Walmarts, different shopping centers, versus going all the way up to, you know, a Costco or downtown Redding. So you can kind of, you know, split where you want to be. As we come down to Red Bluff, now Red Bluff is really a historic area. Like, you are going to see the 1910, 1920 Victorian homes in the heart of downtown Red Bluff. It's just a really cool town. They have, the Red Bluff Rodeo roundup every year. So there's a lot of country cowboy that still is predominant in Red Bluff as much as it is in Redding, where we also have the Redding Rodeo. So there's just a huge, country cowboy lifestyle that you'll kind of experience in Red Bluff. Now, Red Bluff is a little bit of a cheaper area to live. You're going to find houses that, you'd almost be surprised would be that maybe affordable. This is kind of like downtown Red Bluff. You obviously have the Sacramento River. So sometimes you can get even properties on the river that would be like $1 million plus in Redding. But here in Red Bluff, you might find them, $700,000 to $800,000. But Red Bluff's median sales price year to date is roughly around $330,000. However, Red Bluff also equally has a very country lifestyle as well. Just as much as Cottonwood, but I would say Cottonwood's a little bit more popular for the agriculture reasons, whereas Red Bluff is just kind of really a different lifestyle of country living, and you're almost like, you can see you're pretty much in your own area versus being so close to Redding. So Red Bluff has a hospital, it has shopping centers, obviously you're on the I-5, so you could get down south if you needed to something more larger. But Red Bluff is really kind of an area that some people will consider, if going from Redding to Anderson to Cottonwood to all these places, they can't find anything. Sometimes people will see Red Bluff as an opportunity of can I give up commuting to find an affordable house, but still be relatively close to, Redding and take that commute. So this is kind of itself Red Bluff as a whole. And like I said, you're gonna have so much agricultural and farms and country living out here in Red Bluff. It's a really, really pretty area to visit and really experience a purely historic downtown. It's so cool. Some of the houses that you'll see, it's just kind of one of a kind that you just don't see anymore. And a lot of people will restore them or keep them to their original date, kind of like character. And it's just been really cool to see those types of homes be preserved versus completely remodeled and kind of lose that taste. So overall, this is kind of in general our map tour. As you get to the west side, I'll just briefly touch on this. As you get to the west side, it's not really an area I completely service. You're going to be very, very, very rural. Igo, Ono, all out here, Hayfork. It's just very, very rural living. So we kind of just stay centralized to about a 45-mile radius around Redding so that we can serve our clients to the highest and best use possible. So I hope that this map tour was helpful, just to know that if you choose to live in Redding, it's not essentially you're stuck to just what Redding has to offer, or maybe the politics of Redding, or the heat of Redding. There is areas that you can escape to, but still have the capability of accessing Redding as your hometown for your amenities, like Shingletown. So I hope this gives you a broader sense that Redding isn't just Redding. There is other areas outside of it that can be a great benefit to you, whether you're looking to invest, whether you're looking to move here, or retire, whatever your story might be. We'd love to help you find what area specifically works for your needs. So as always, don't forget to hit that like button, comment below. I'd love to hear maybe what area you are most interested in, as well as subscribe as always, because every week we come out with a new episode letting you know a little bit more about our area and why I love to call Redding home, because at the end of the day, we're not only here to help you find a home, but a community to thrive in. We'll catch you next week.